Okay, so let's talk about Gen X parents. Have you ever noticed there's something kind of contradictory about them? I mean, this is the generation of ultimate independence, right? And yet, they grew up to be some of the most, shall we say, involved parents out there. So what's the deal? Let's dive in. Wow. This quote just, it hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? Go outside and be home when the streetlights come on. That was the mantra. And now that same generation gets called out for being too involved? It's a total flip. So how in the world did we get from there to here? That's exactly what we're going to figure out. All right, so to really get to the bottom of this paradox, we have to hit the rewind button. We need to look at the origin story of Gen X themselves, because you'll see their parenting style today, it's not random. It is a direct, almost point-for-point reaction to how they were raised. And it all really boils down to one single defining experience. I'm talking about an experience that shaped their entire worldview and as a result, their whole approach to parenting. And it's all built on the memory of being a latchkey kid. And you know, this wasn't some niche thing affecting a few families here and there. Nope. Just look at this number. We're talking about a massive societal shift. Between the 70s and the 90s, the number of moms with young kids who are working just exploded, up to nearly 60%. Think about that. It completely changed the landscape of childhood for a whole generation. And that massive shift gave us this term, a term that basically defined an entire childhood, the latchkey kid. I mean, you know the scene, right? You get home from school, you let yourself in with that key around your neck, you grab your own snack, and you decide if and when you're going to do your homework. For a few hours, you were the king or queen of your own little castle. Now, this quote, yeah, it sounds a little harsh, right? Least parented, least nurtured. But it's pointing to something really important. It wasn't that their parents didn't love them. Not at all. It was just the reality of the times. The economy was changing, and this environment, it basically forced Gen X to become incredibly self-reliant, like from a super young age. And right here, this is the emotional core of it all. It was a trade-off. On one hand, you learned to solve your own problems. You had to. Your parents weren't calling the school to sort out a bad grade or mediating a fight you had with your best friend. But the flip side of all that awesome independence, man, it could feel pretty lonely. Okay, so that's the backstory. That's the latchkey legacy. So how did that translate into their own parenting? Well, let's fast forward to today, because what we're seeing is nothing short of a direct, very conscious course correction. And it's given rise to this brilliant term, the stealth fighter parent. I love this. See, they're not helicopters, not hovering over every little thing, but the second a real problem pops up, we're talking bullying, a serious issue, bam, they deploy. They swoop in with this insane, focused intensity that can leave a school principal just spinning. And you can almost hear the internal monologue playing out in their heads, right? So many of them thought, I loved my independence. I'm going to be a hands-off parent. They swore they wouldn't be overbearing, but then that memory kicks in. The memory of that key turning in the lock of a quiet, empty house. And suddenly, they're doing the one thing they promised themselves they'd never do. They're getting involved. So this stealth fighter approach, is there like a technical term for it? Well, what's fascinating is that their gut instinct, their intuition, it lines up almost perfectly with a really well-established psychological framework. Okay, let's break this down. A psychologist named Diana Baumrind came up with these categories based on two big things, how warm you are and how much you expect from your kids. So you have authoritarian parents. Think high expectations, low warmth. All rules, very little relationship. Then you've got permissive on the other end. Super warm and fuzzy, but basically no rules. But Gen X, instinctively, they're shooting for that sweet spot right in the middle. Authoritative. That means high warmth and high expectations. It's all about finding that balance. And here's the kicker, the science totally backs them up. We have decades of research showing that this balanced, authoritative approach just works. Kids raised this way tend to be more resilient, they do better in school, they're just more emotionally healthy all around. So turns out Gen X's gut feeling on how to parent, yeah, it was spot on. But, and this is a big but, trying to achieve that perfect authoritative balance is way, way harder than it sounds. Why? Because Gen X isn't parenting in some perfect little bubble. Oh no, they are navigating all of this while being squeezed from like every possible direction. I mean, talk about being caught in the middle. They're literally the sandwich generation in more ways than one. They've got their boomer parents looking at them thinking, you're coddling those kids, you're way too soft. And then they have their Gen Z kids looking back at them saying, you're too strict, you just don't get it. They're stuck being translators between two completely different worlds. And oh yeah, let's throw in one more giant, unprecedented challenge: social media. This is the very first generation of parents trying to raise kids in the digital age. I mean, think about it. Gen X grew up where privacy was just the default setting. Now they're parenting in a world of constant online judgment and comparison. It's like a totally alien planet to them. So you start adding it all up, and what do you get? A perfect storm of pressure. You've got caring for aging parents, you've got hitting a ceiling at work, you've got all this financial stress, and you're trying to manage all of that while also trying to give your kids that emotionally present childhood you didn't have. Is it any wonder so many Gen X parents just feel completely emotionally wiped out? So with all this noise, all this conflicting advice coming from every direction, what do? How do they navigate it? Well, they fall back on the one tool that their own childhood forged in them: a rock-solid internal compass. Think about it. When you grow up having to figure most things out for yourself, you learn a really powerful lesson pretty fast. You can't always count on someone else to tell you what to do. So they don't look for external validation. Instead, they just trust their gut. They ask themselves one simple question: what did I need when I was their age? And that really brings us to their ultimate goal, which is this incredibly delicate balancing act. They want to pass on that resilience, that toughness and independence that made them who they are. But at the same time, they are absolutely determined to add in that layer of emotional support, that feeling of presence that they so often missed out on. And that leaves us with this final, really powerful question. What Gen X is doing, it isn't about throwing out their past. It's about refining it. They're trying to solve this impossibly complex puzzle. How do you break the cycle of the things that hurt you while keeping the parts that honestly made you strong? And that right there, that is the absolute heart of the Gen X parent paradox.